Thank you very much, General. I want to begin my presentation by thanking the Army Commander and the Sri Lanka Army for organizing this event. Ladies and gentlemen, Sri Lanka defeated the first insurgency and terrorist campaign of the 21st century. If you look at the global threat, terrorism ranks above all other threats. It ranks above the threat of fissile and missile proliferation, of organized crime, of piracy, of a range of threats. And terrorism, although the threat of terrorism has been neutralized in Sri Lanka, it will remain a threat worldwide for many years to come. Let me share with you in my assessment why and how Sri Lanka was able to defeat the LTT. What were the three principal factors? The first is that the Sri Lankan military realized that detecting and disrupting the logistical line, the line that supported the LTT, the government was able to detect and disrupt it. Basically, the Sri Lankan military destroyed the 9 LTT ships that were acting as warehouses. I think that if there was a continuous supply of arms, ammunition, explosives, which included mortar and artillery, very large quantities of armaments, I don't believe that the Sri Lanka Army would have been able to dismantle the LTT, because the rate of fatalities and casualties of the Sri Lanka Army was huge. So in many ways, that partnership the Army had with the Navy was fundamental. That disruption of the logistical line enabled the Army to operate very effectively. The second is that the Sri Lanka Army was able to operate in multiple fronts, something that the Sri Lankan military could not do before. And that is because the army was able to recruit in very large numbers. The Ministry of Defense realized the importance of working with the people of Sri Lanka. So in many ways, the government invested time in educating the general population, the general public, the need for them to participate in that national endeavor. And there were so many recruits, so many people who were willing to join the army. And as a result, the army had the luxury of deploying those numbers. In one battle, 400 soldiers were killed. But the army was able to deploy 1,500 soldiers in the same battlefront to decimate the LTT front lines in the front. Without the luxury of numbers, it would not have been possible. The third factor is that the Sri Lankan president was able to counter the international pressure. There was very significant pressure from the Europeans, especially in the final phase. This pressure came about because of two principal reasons. One is that the LTT was able very successfully to build about 40 front, cover and sympathetic organizations in Europe. These organizations were able to reach out to the Tamil community, and a segment of that Tamil community was co-opted by the LTT, and those individuals, they exercise what you call diaspora or constituency pressure on the British politicians. And so those British politicians, a very small number of them, nonetheless significant, they did exactly what those fronts were telling them. So we saw David Miliband traveling to Sri Lanka. And he was acting at the behest of those terrorist front, cover and sympathetic organizations. Because those organizations projected a different image of what was happening in Sri Lanka. So we saw that some European politicians, some Canadian politicians were operating because they were lobbied by these front organizations. But the Sri Lankan president was very clear in his determination. He said that this time we will continue the fight to an end. Dr. Kill Collins referred to something very interesting. He said that the Sri Lankan government did not agree to a surrender of the Tamil Tigers in the final phase. I must share with you that the Sri Lankan government agreed to a surrender of the Tamil Tigers, but did not agree to a ceasefire. There's a fundamental difference between a ceasefire and a surrender. In fact, the co-chairs, that is Japan, the United States, the Europeans, these countries went to the Tamil Tigers and told the Tamil Tigers, you better surrender. The Tamil Tigers scolded them and said, no surrender. Organize a ceasefire. Because that is what had been done in the past by the Tamil Tigers to buy that space of time where they will reorganize, retrain, and fight back. So, I want to share with you that the management of international pressure was more significant. And let me reiterate something, because I am not an officer of the Sri Lankan government. I would be able to speak more openly in a forum like this. So I want to take that privilege to explain to you the country that Sri Lanka managed best was India. And I want to say that in the past, Sri Lanka was unable to dismantle the Tamil Tigers because of the same pressure that was brought about by India. In fact, if we look at the period from 1983 July to 1987 June, the Tamil Tigers were operating out of Tamil Nadu. Because of geopolitical differences, the United States was a close friend of Sri Lanka. The Europeans were very close to Sri Lanka, but India was within the Soviet sphere of influence during Mrs. Gandhi's time and the early period of Rajiv Gandhi. So because of that, India was very suspicious of the developments in Sri Lanka. India protested on three issues. One was Sri Lanka had a Voice of America station. India thought that this Voice of America station was eavesdropping into Indian military facilities. The Americans were using Sri Lanka as a staging pad. The second factor is that Indians were very worried that the Trincomalee was going to be given to the Americans. Third was the presence of the Israelis and the South African specialist soldiers in Sri Lanka, training our pilots to do low contour flying, Israelis training our special forces and providing other specialist assistance. So the Indians were annoyed, and India thought that it can exercise that leverage over Sri Lanka by providing assistance to the Tamil Tigers and 4 other Tamil groups. So more than 20,000 Sri Lankan Tamil groups received training in India. The first batch of Tamil Tigers were trained in Establishment 22, north of Dehradun, India's principal military academy, in a city called Chakrata. Prabhakaran went to that facility by helicopter from New Delhi to see the training that was being conducted. The second batch was trained in Himachal Pradesh. 8 other batches were trained in Tamil Nadu, including the specific batch that the training was conducted in Tamil Nadu. A woman called Tenmuli Rajaratnam was trained. Tenmuli Rajaratnam is Danu, the woman who subsequently went and killed Rajiv Gandhi. She was trained in a facility in India. We have a photograph of her holding a Tamil Tiger flag, wearing an Indian camouflage kit. But certainly Rajiv Gandhi was different from Mrs. Gandhi. Mrs. Gandhi was very angry with Sri Lanka.